Hello, welcome to the Intramural Indoor Co-Rec Soccer Captain's video. My name is Mike Wyden, Director of Intramural Sports.
And I'm Tommy Shore, Assistant Director of Intramural Sports here at the University of Iowa.
And today we're going to be taking you through all the information you need to know to get your team ready to play Intramural Co-Rec Indoor Soccer. We'll start by introducing you to our staff. These are our graduate assistants, Eric Cohen and Andy Christopher. They'll be in charge of Intramural Indoor Soccer. And these are our undergraduate intramural student supervisors, and these will be the people that you'll see at the HTRC when you show up. And if you have any questions, you can certainly ask these people those questions on site. We'll start by talking about imleagues.com. This is a site that you can go to register your team. We'll be posting some league announcements. It's a way for you to add players to your roster, check your team schedules, look at the sport rules and information sheets are all up there. Under the handbooks and manuals link on the sport page, and also the updated standings and brackets for postseason. So you'll be able to check that throughout the year at this site. Some responsibilities that you have as a team captain are to make sure that your teammates are eligible. You'll be able to see your team's roster on that imleagues.com website, so you need to check that regularly to make sure that your teammates are eligible to participate in intramural indoor soccer. You also need to make sure you can pass this information along to your teammates. If you want to share the link with them, they can watch this video as well. And you're going to serve as the team contact for our intramural office. So if we have an issue with your team, we're going to be contacting you because you're the team captain. The team roster that you have on imleagues.com, you do have the ability to add players to that roster through your quarterfinal playoff round. Once we get to the quarterfinals of playoffs, at that point the rosters will freeze and you won't be able to add anybody. To be eligible to play, your players must be added to your roster by 8 a.m. the morning of that game for weekday games, or if you have a game on Saturday or Sunday, you need to add that player on imleagues by Friday at 5 p.m. Again, make sure you're checking your roster frequently to make sure that there's no errors or nobody's ineligible that you think might be eligible. That'll save us from getting to the site and thinking that somebody's eligible and unable to play. The roster drop request forms, if you want to remove a player from your roster, you need to fill out a form manually. And those forms are available on our website, also in our office in E216 Fieldhouse. And then once that form is completed, we have a drop box right outside our office. And you can submit that form in that drop box and we can process your roster drop. As far as the number of players go for each team, there are 6 players on the field at one time. And it is co-rec, so we do have 3 men and 3 women playing at any one time. And one of those 6 players will be the goalie. It doesn't matter if a male or female is goalie, but one of those 6 will be the goalie. And also for co-rec games, you can start the game with as few as 5 players. With those 5 players, you have to have a 3-2 ratio as how that matches up there, men versus women. In order to be eligible to play intramural sports, you need to be a student, a faculty, or staff member of the University of Iowa, or you can be a legally married partner or spouse of one of those groups. And you can only represent one team in the Co-Rec Intramural Indoor Soccer League. So once a player enters a second team, then that player becomes ineligible because you cannot play on 2 teams, and that player is ineligible for the remainder of the season. So keep reminding your teammates that they're only eligible to play on your team if they're on your team's roster. If we do have someone that is ineligible and they play on 2 different teams, or for any other reason they're ineligible to play, and they play for your team, your team would then forfeit those games. So make sure you're checking and ensuring that all your players are eligible and only playing on your team. For intercollegiate and club sport players, intercollegiate athletes that are on the University of Iowa soccer team cannot participate in intramural soccer. If you've got a former Division I soccer player, they do need to sit out 2 full semesters in order to gain eligibility to play intramural soccer. And then as far as sports club coaches or participants go, you can have a maximum of 2 members or coaches on your roster. You can't have any more than 2 that are on a sport club that plays soccer. We will be checking that with the sport club roster, so please limit those to 2. As far as checking in, when you get to the site, you will be checking in with your university ID card. Your players will give that card to our staff members, and they will check in with their university ID before every single game. If they don't have their ID, our motto is no ID equals no play, no exceptions. They're not going to be allowed to play unless they bring that university ID card. So you as a team captain, please get that information to your players so they can remember to bring those each game. If we've got somebody that misuses an ID, we have specific policies set up for those. If we have that situation, they are subject to a calendar year suspension from intramural sports, and we are required to report those incidents to the Dean of Students office because that's a violation of the University of Iowa Student Code of Conduct. So make sure everybody that's on your team roster is using their own personal ID and they're not sharing IDs or trying to get someone else to play. As far as conduct goes, any participant that participates in a fight, there's a suspension involved from recreational activities for a calendar year. And all the fighting incidents, in addition to misuse of ID, also have to be forwarded to the Dean of Students office. So talk to your teammates about fighting and good sportsmanship and we won't have any problem. If we do have an ejected player, there's some things that go along with an ejection. An ejected player will be required to have a meeting with our staff to talk about the ejection along with you as the team captain. So talk to your players about staying in the game and not getting to the point of ejection. That saves you from having to have a meeting with us as well. That participant that is ejected and the team captain won't be allowed to participate until after that meeting has taken place. So you'll be ineligible to participate until we meet. And then the person that's ejected will be suspended for at least one additional game based upon the severity of the action. The officials that are on your field will rate your sportsmanship between 1 and 4. 1 is an excellent rating, 4 is a 4 rating. They'll do that for every single game. If your team receives a 3 or a 4 rating, you'll be notified by our staff. If it is a 4 rating, you'll have to come in as a team captain and talk to us. We'll have a meeting to talk about your team sportsmanship. But what's most important is your average you have to maintain is a 2.5 or better. Your average has to be between 1 and 2.5 in order to get to the playoffs and continue on throughout the playoffs. So with only 2 regular season games, your average needs to be in between that 1 and 2.5 ratio. The games that we have out there are officiated by our student intramural staff. A few of them may be certified in FIFA, NCAA, or the National Federation of High School Associations. But not all of them will be. Most of them will not be officially certified, but they do all go through our training session, and we give them the information that they need to officiate soccer to the best of their ability. If you have an issue with officials, you need to bring that to the attention of the supervisor, and we'll try to work with you as best we can. Forfeits, if your team does not have the minimum amount to start, which is 5 players, within 10 minutes of the start time, your team will then forfeit that game. And what comes along with a forfeit is a forfeit fine, which is $22.50, which will be charged to your U-bill as a team captain because your team has forfeited. And that forfeit fine will be reinstated if you don't forfeit again throughout the remainder of the season. If you know you're going to forfeit, you know your team has a test, you won't be there, you can default is a better option than forfeiting. Defaulting is letting us know you can't play. Do that by noon the day of your game, emailing Andrew Christopher, or calling that number 319-335-9292. And a defaulting team then will not be charged your forfeit fine. Protests is a way for you as a team captain, if you believe there's been a misinterpretation or misapplication of a rule, you can protest that call. We're not talking about judgment calls about whether a goal was good or not, but these are misinterpretations or applications. You need to call timeout immediately and bring it to the attention of the supervisor and the officials. If you still disagree with their ruling, you can protest to our office the next day, the next business day, along with $5, and you get that $5 back if you end up being right. We'll continue the game from that point of protest. And then our t-shirt policy for indoor soccer is everybody needs to have a matching team color for your team, with the exception of the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper can have another shirt color as long as it's not as the same color as the other team. So when you arrive, make sure your team is bringing 2 different shirt colors, maybe a black shirt and a white shirt or something like that, so that way if you need to switch, we can do that. If you do have individuals that aren't in your team shirt colors, they are not going to be allowed to participate in indoor soccer. And so Assistant Director Tommy Shore is now going to take over for the rest of the slideshow.
All right, team schedules, once registration closes on March 6th, team schedules will be posted on imleagues.com on March 7th. We'll get them out as soon as we can, and you guys can check them out there on IM Leagues. Co-Rec games will begin the Monday after spring break, and that date is Monday, March 19th. So be ready when you come back from spring break. We know a lot of things are going on, but be ready. If your team is scheduled to play a game that night, that is when games will start. We also will have league standings posted on imleagues.com. You can go there to check out the results of the previous night's games, or if you don't play and want to see how other teams are doing, you can go on there. And the top 2 teams in each section of 3, when we divide you into divisions, there'll be 3-team divisions as best we can. Some may have 4 in their division based on numbers. But the top 2 in each division of 3 will qualify for the playoffs, and the top 3 in each division of 4, if we have any of those, will also qualify for the playoff bracket. Games will be played at the Hawkeye Tennis and Recreation Complex. There's a turf area out there adjacent to the fitness area in the locker rooms, so that's where our games will be played. The Hawkeye Tennis and Recreation Complex is located out towards Hawk Lot, kind of by UI Sports Medicine and in the Hall of Fame area there. The Hawkeye Interdorm bus does go out there, so if you want to take the Interdorm bus, you can get dropped off there next to Hawkeye Drive, right next to the facility. The parking lot is free after 4:30 p.m., so if you have a vehicle and are driving out there, you won't have any problem after 4:30 p.m. on weekdays parking out there. And remember, you must bring your university ID to enter the facility, so you need it to play in your game as well to check in, so make sure to bring that university ID and you'll be good to go. This facility, the Hawkeye Tennis and Recreation Complex, or HTRC, is managed by both Recreational Services and Athletics. So please do everything you can to make sure we keep this facility in good shape. Again, a lot of groups use this, not just Intramural Sports, not just you guys as Co-Rec Indoor Soccer players and team captains. So make sure you're keeping it nice. No food or drink besides water is allowed in the turf area, and no metal cleats are allowed on the turf. I'm going to get into some game rules now. Games will consist of 20-minute halves. The clock will run the whole time except for the last minute of each half and overtime period if necessary. 6 players on the field at a time, one of which is the goalie, as Mike talked about. The clock will stop on all fouls, violations, and dead balls in the last minute of each half, as I mentioned. But the first 19 minutes of each half and 4 minutes of overtime, the clock will not stop. There is a mercy rule in our indoor soccer leagues. If a team is ahead by 8 or more goals with 10 minutes or less to go in the game will be stopped. So if we get to the 8-goal margin, 10 minutes left, we're just going to end the game right there. For your safety, all jewelry must come off except for medic alert bracelets, which must be taped down. So if our officials see you wearing jerseys or jewelry, they're going to make you come off the field and take that off before you can come back on. To start the game, we'll have a coin toss. The team that wins the coin toss will choose which end they would like to defend and which goal they would like to attack. The team that does not win the opening coin toss will kick off the first half, and then when we go to start the second half, the team that won the coin toss originally will kick off to start the second half. All substitutions during your games must be made in the substitution zone, which will be marked by cones at midfield. And new this year, which is different from last year and same as men's and women's soccer, indoor soccer this year, substitutes can only enter during the dead ball period. There used to be on-the-fly substitutions and things like that, but now you must go stand at midfield, wait for a dead ball period, notify the official that you want to come in, and have them beckon you in order to substitute. If the ball goes out of bounds on the sideline, it's just going to be a regular over-the-head throw-in, just like outdoor soccer and what you're probably used to. If it goes out on the end line, if it's last touched by the attacking team, it's going to result in a goal clearance throw by the goalkeeper. If it's last touched by the defending team, it's going to be a corner kick, just as in standard soccer. For a goal clearance throw, the goalkeeper must throw it out of the penalty area and cannot play it to him or herself. The ball must touch the ground or another player on the goalkeeper's side of midfield in order for this throw to be legal, and this has to be done outside the penalty area. Fouls and misconduct, some direct free kick fouls, some examples of that, but not all of them, are kicking, tripping, or striking an opponent, pushing, holding, or charging an opponent, a handball, or slide tackling an opponent. So basically, excessively rough play. We want to keep everybody safe out there, don't want injuries. So these fouls, once they're called, will result in a direct free kick for the offended team. Indirect free kick fouls, the difference between direct and indirect is a direct you can score directly off of. Indirect must be touched by someone other than the kicker before going in the goal to count. And some things that lead to an indirect free kick for the offended team are playing in a dangerous manner, intentional obstruction of an opponent, charging a goalkeeper out of the penalty area. We want to keep those goalkeepers safe. Goalkeeper violations, if you violate on the goal clearance throw like we just talked about, it'll result in an indirect free kick and illegal substitutions. Yellow cards, if we need to issue a yellow card, or the officials out there need to issue a yellow card, these are some examples of what they may be issuing a yellow card for. Substitution violation, if you substitute on the fly like we used to do in the past, or you come on or come off outside of the substitution zone, that's an illegal substitution violation and subject to a yellow card for the person that infringes that rule. Persistent infringements of the rules, arguing the decision of the officials. Again, sportsmanship is key in our program, and so arguing the decision of the officials will lead to yellow cards because we want to squash that as best we can. And just overall behaving in an unsportsmanlike manner. A red card, a little more serious than a yellow card. If you get a red card, you're ejected from the game. Examples that may lead to one of these are serious foul play. If you're just being excessively rough out there and people are going to get hurt, we got to get you out of the game. Violent conduct or fighting, persistent foul or abusive language, or a second yellow card offense. So if you have two substitution violations and you got a yellow card the first time, you're going to get a yellow card the second time, which equals a red card. If there is a red card issued to someone on your team, it results in a 10-minute period in which the offending team, the team that got a player ejected, must play down a player. Regardless of the number of goals scored during this time, you're going to play down a player for that 10 minutes. A team will automatically default the game if more than one player is issued a red card during the same game. If the game is tied at the end of regulation, we're going to have a golden goal overtime period. It'll last 5 minutes. And basically what it is first one to score wins the game. So if it remains tied at the end of regulation going to this golden goal overtime, and if it's tied at the end of the overtime period, we're going to go into a shootout. For the shootout, each team will have 5 kickers to start off, and it'll alternate teams that shoot. So it'll be alternating order team to team. Any 5 players on your team may shoot, except the order of shooters must alternate by gender. If it is still tied after the end of 5 kicks by each team, we're going to continue each team shooting 1 until the tie is broken. Buffalo Wild Wings Intramural Sports Points Championship. We have a partner sponsorship with Buffalo Wild Wings that sponsors our Intramural Sports Points Championship program, and points are awarded to each team that participates in every sport. Whether you know it or not, you could have been accumulating points already this year just by participating. Points are based on each team's finishing position, so the better you do, you make the playoffs and advance in the playoffs, the better your point total is going to be. To accumulate points throughout the year, teams must keep the same team names for each sport that they play. At the end of the year, the teams or organizations with the most points will be awarded in 5 different divisions: men's, women's, fraternity, sorority, and co-rec. And each winning team, each championship team will receive a championship trophy and a $100 gift card to Buffalo Wild Wings. Also, a partnership we have with some folks on campus is the eChug program. It's an online confidential alcohol assessment. And the offer we have to you and what you can do to take advantage of this is if you have 75% of your team's final roster, so once our championship night has ended, we will go back and look at the rosters. And if you have 75% of those folks on your roster that have completed the eChug alcohol assessment, you will receive a refund of your entry fee. Details about this program are available on the Intramural Sports website through Recreational Services and on imleagues.com, which Mike talked about earlier. Registration requirements: you cannot register your team without passing the captain's quiz that is associated with this video. So now that we're reaching the end of the video, you hopefully will have found some of the answers you needed to pass that quiz. Now you can use, on that quiz, you can use the sport rules document, the IM rules and regulations, and again this video to complete your quiz, and all of those are available on imleagues.com. Once you pass the captain's quiz and you're able to make your team name and all that fun stuff, following that you must meet the minimum player requirement. So you have to have at least 5 players, eligible players, signed up on your roster. And once you do that, you must pay the registration fee and then select a day. You can select Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday in which your team will play its regular season games. And all of these steps must be completed by 8 a.m. on March 6th in order for your team to be included in the Co-Rec Indoor Soccer season. That concludes this video. If you have any questions on the intramural sports program or Co-Rec Indoor Soccer here at the University of Iowa, feel free to contact our intramural staff or stop by the intramural sports office in E216 Fieldhouse, and we'll help you out the best we can. Good luck and have a great season.